What's up guys, KPlays here, and this has been a long time coming, but welcome finally to part 3 of my in-depth Monster Hunter World Hunting Horn Guide. In this video, we're going to be talking about some of the gear you're going to want to craft as you go through the game as a hunting horn user, on top of some of my favorite sets to use at endgame. My favorite thing about building sets for hunting horns is that it's so easy. You don't really have to worry about any situational utility skills because your weapon gives you the options of bringing them in for free. That lets you focus more on complementing and improving your weapon stats themselves, which in turn is going to net you some better results in solo and multiplayer. Let me show you what that looks like for your armor choices as you progress through the story. Low rank itself is pretty bare bones when it comes to skill points and armor selections, so you can realistically just wear whatever you want. This set right here though is going to give you a slight offensive boost and the all-important Maestro skill for increasing your buff timers. Radabon helm, Hornitar legs, bone everything else. Until you reach the Rotten Veil you won't be able to get the parts for the head and the legs, so until then you can just wear the full bone set. Any weapon is fine at this point, but I'd suggest either the bone or metal bag pipelines because they give you early access to the attack up song. Next up we have our early high rank set. Rathalos Beta for the head and chest, Bone Arms Alpha, Bone Waist Beta, and Rathalos Legs Alpha. All it needs is that first free attack decoration you get early on, but you can also add the charm for more power. This set serves as a decent starter damage build until you can get access to the Elder Dragon armor and good decorations, so it won't be around for too long. You can either keep on upgrading your low rank horns or pick up the Dodogama line at this point. Basil Juice and Devil Joe are also technically available, but I wouldn't suggest going after either unless you're absolutely sure you can handle them in early high rank gear. All three of these new horns will technically be stronger than anything else available at the time, but you won't be able to fully upgrade or optimize them until later on. Once you beat Nergigante, your options open up, and you start getting some things you can use all the way through the rest of the game. This set right here, Nerg Alpha for the arms, head, and legs, Dober Chest Beta, and Bone Waist Beta, gives a nice mix of skills for improving damage on top of a little free healing on the side. Keep in mind that some better decorations may start becoming available around here, so you'll want to keep some slots open for them when you get them. What you'll really be hoping for is a Sonorous Jewel, because then you'll finally be able to drop the Bone Waist for something better while still keeping Maestro in your set. For example, if we drop the Dober Chest here to try to add back in some weakness exploit, we'd lose attack 4 unless we use the attack charm. Or, we could just swap in Nerg's Waist and a Sonorous Jewel and we'd be all set. All we're doing is building offense-oriented setups to boost our damage like you would with any other weapon, then slapping in Horn Maestro where it fits. Depending on your weapon choice, songs will take over a good bit of the utility skills without requiring you to fit them in with armor and decorations. It's nice and easy. You'll definitely appreciate that added weight behind your swings as you go on to fight the other elders. Speaking of those, once you take out Kushala Deora, Valhazak, and Teastra, even more optimized sets like this will become available. Kaiser Arms Alpha can easily give you weakness exploit with just one Tenderizer Jewel elsewhere, or you can go with the beta version and the Dragon King eye patch to free up slots. The beta versions of Kushala Deora's chest and Death Stench legs can give you a lot of extra sharpness, but certain horns can survive with a lot less of that than others. For those, you can swap in things like Dober Chest or Neg Legs Beta, depending on if you want some extra affinity, extra attack, or both. Your choices are going to depend on the stats of the horn in question. With some recent game additions, we've gotten a couple new sets with some good pieces of armor. Lunastra's entire beta set is full of pieces that have great slots for customizing skills if you have the decorations for it, and the chest piece specifically is one of the best peak performance pieces in the game. With health augments becoming more popular recently, running this to add extra damage to your sets is even easier. Dante's leg armor from the Devil May Cry event is a good alternate option to Teastra Arms or the Dragon King eye patch for easily adding in weakness exploit. If you can get into a quest, you should pick up the Azure Starlord set. The legs can be used for a 3-point and crit boost, and if you wear 2 pieces at once, you can access the set bonus to add a little bit of extra damage for elemental horn setups. Archetype event quests will be something you'll want to farm for gear as they come out as well. These are going to have some pieces that you're not going to want to pass up on, so get them while you still can. The Kieran Gamma arms and chest piece will be good additions to your sets if you want to run one of the status horns that require free element to activate their lock stats. Valhazak Gamma has a few pieces for running recovery and or peak performance builds, on top of having arms that are perfect for the Devil Joe horn, but we'll get to that in a second. These are all that's available at the moment, but I'll be sure to update you guys whenever other Gamma sets get added in. The last piece of armor I'll suggest for general setups before I get into my personalized build is the Kuptaroth Chest Alpha. This big ball of fur won't be available until after you beat the main story, but it's great for adding in points of crit boost if you either don't have the slot space or haven't been too lucky with rare decoration drops. With that, you pretty much have a full gear guide for picking up this weapon at any point in your game progress. Now let's talk about what I've personally been using at endgame as a hunting horn main. Up first we have my sets for the old top 3 hunting horns. All 3 are almost identical, with the main differences being additions to match the stats of the horn in question. The heavy bone horners are main option for using the non-elemental boost skill, which allows it to stand close in power to the other top damage options despite only being able to reach blue sharpness. Because most of its attack power comes from its actual attack values instead of sharpness bonuses, it also has some of the strongest sound burst hits out of all the hunting horns period. The Basil Reed Rookslayer is unique because it's one of the few horns that actually has 2 slots. These allow you to vary your decoration placement a bit more, which in turn allows you to switch some set pieces around. In this case, I chose to swap out the Dante legs for the Death Stench to max out handicraft. This lets me use the higher damage bonus of white sharpness a lot longer before I have to take a break to sharpen. The main difference here with the Deep Vero set is the use of the Val Arms Gamma to squeeze in Dragon Attack 3. This lets you hit Dragon weak monsters even harder, and even against monsters that aren't very weak to it still adds a few extra points of damage compared to what you would do without it. With this setup you can get more damage per critical hit than almost anything else you can put together, but that big negative 30% affinity handicap gives other horns a chance to catch up with more crits over time, unless you sacrifice the second mantle for the affinity booster to make up for it. Before the Lunastra update, these three of the Nergigante hunting horn were your go-to options, but now we have three new additions to the upper ranks. The Empress Roar horns have decent starting stats all around for attack, affinity, slots, and sharpness. These free up both augment slots and skill set space, allowing you more freedom to build your sets differently in ways that can match or even beat out some of the old top contenders. Blaze, for example, has been rising in popularity with most speedrunners because of how well it works with the Teostra set bonus. It already is a song that gives you near infinite buff timers, and pairing it with Master's Touch also gives you near infinite white sharpness, so you can stay on the offensive at almost all times, especially if you do what I did and augment for health so you don't have to waste time healing. I haven't lucked out enough yet to have 4 or 5 attack gems on hand, but if you do, you can make this more optimized version of the set. The Styx variant trades in a little power for more song utility compared to Blaze, making it a slightly better option for the multiplayer setting. The built-in Razor Sharp means that there's pretty much zero need to add in any extra sharpness skills, and because of that, you have more room to add things like Agitator instead of Handicraft to cover the damage gap. When Agitator is up and running, this can actually get slightly stronger than some of the Attack Up XL horns, but since it's only in short bursts, they're still more consistent for straight power. This is a bit of a gimmicky, interesting setup I put together that really only works with the Ruin variant because of its unique songs and built-in set bonus. With the random healing from Hasten Recovery, the slow regeneration from the Val set bonus Super Recovery, the lifesteal on every hit from a health regen augment, and the item-free healing from recovery songs, you're almost unkillable in this setup unless you run into some really bad luck. Both this horn and Styx are straight upgrades of the Desolations Overture and Xenomonashina lines, so if you want those songs, the Lunastra versions are almost always going to be the better option. For those of you that like using wide range in multiplayer, here's a set that can item share without losing any offensive power. Styx uses it best, but in exchange for a few skill points, you can also use it with Teostra's or Fee to protect against status ailments instead of boosting your team's stats. A lot of people will already be bringing in some resistance skills against things like Valak Huron though, so try to remember that before going with the second option. Now, since Hunting Horn is a weapon that relies mostly on raw damage, these 6 can suit all of your needs throughout endgame play pretty much, because they have some of the highest possible damage potential that you can reach with the weapon. However, if you'd like to go for status or elemental options, there are several that aren't half bad either. After the free damage Blast gives, Paralysis is the next best status on Horns because of how well it pairs with KO for keeping monsters immobile. For that, Fortissimo and Tarath Pipe Paralysis cover your standard lockdown strategies. In solo they're really useful for controlling the fight, and in multiplayer it doubles as a kind of offensive support. Fortissimo is the harder hitting option between the two because of its attack up song, but Tarath is much more effective for Paralysis because of its higher status values. Both are equally usable, so your choice is mainly going to come down to which part you find more important. This higher status lower damage, lower status higher damage relationship is pretty standard in Monster Hunter, and the same goes for Dancing Devul and Bonhorn for sleep. Bon has more raw damage, and Devul has more sleep status. The difference here is that Devul can slightly make up for its lower damage because of its high natural affinity, allowing us to build up for a perfect 100% critical hit rate. Even with that though, expect Bon to take the lead in damage. These two horns are good for different sleep-related strategies. With Bon, you're mostly going to want to attack right through the sleep animation while making sure to land a hard hit to wake the monster. Since Devul does lower damage per hit but will make the monster sleep a lot more often, it gets much more of a benefit out of waking the monster with Bombardier boosted explosions. That's really it for status builds because our single poison option, the Datura horn, is unfortunately outclassed by the next horn in the list. Lightning Drum is our best choice for an offensive healing support strategy, and it's also our first elemental build. With earplugs and good thunder damage, it makes for a viable setup against Basiljuice in solo or multiplayer. I choose to run this over Kieran's Hunting Horn for Thunder despite its lower element because the higher raw damage will usually cause it to beat out Thunderbolt Horn in most scenarios. Anja Barone is a strong offensive option if you want to target fire weaknesses against monsters like Valor Kieran, but you'll have to get really aggressive if you want that high elemental damage to rack up and get close to any normal raw builds. It hits hard for a horn without any attack up songs, but those are still pretty hard to beat. Tarath Water is in a similar position. It's a decently strong option for water weak enemies, but I honestly don't pull this one out too often because you can handle most of those just as well with the top 6 raw horns. If you do choose to pick it up, it's actually not half bad, and it comes with a unique song set to boot. Like with Poison, we don't really have an ice option that is now classed by something else, and Deep Vero conveniently pulls double duty as our best dragon horn, so this wraps up all of our most viable endgame choices. For you fashion-focused hunters out there that may be turned away by the looks of some of these setups, remember that layered armor can cover up some of the pieces that look out of place. I'm personally not a big fan of big bulky armor, so Brigade is one of my favorite options right now. That's it for Part 3. Part 4 will be covering the advanced and lesser known tricks of the weapon, and will also be coming out a lot sooner than this one did if I had anything to say about it. If you guys found this useful, be sure to like and comment on anything else you'd like to see in the future. This has been another KPlays. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.